Hello everyone, welcome to this video. So in this video I will explain the terms which are called as groups, rings and fields, which are more familiarly used or commonly used in the abstract algebra or modern algebra. These groups, rings and fields are nothing but they are a set of elements. It actually forms a set, you can say, with certain elements, maybe finite number of elements or maybe infinite number of elements, and we call them as groups, rings or fields if they actually follow certain conditions or axioms. Now one by one we will understand what is group, what are the conditions to be satisfied to be called as a group, what is ring, fields. Okay, now as I told just now that the groups, rings and fields are nothing but they are the branch of mathematics which is known as some elements of the branch of the mathematics which is known as abstract algebra or modern algebra. Okay, so this in the abstract algebra we are very much concerned with sets, okay, which consist of elements, and we perform certain operation on those elements. And when we perform certain operation on the set of elements, like maybe addition, maybe multiplication, these are the basic operations, arithmetical operations, what we can perform. When we perform certain operations on the set of elements, we get the answer. And that answer, the third element, should also be part of the set. Okay. So these operations are certain subject to certain conditions. Okay. And we will understand what are the conditions to be satisfied and all those things now one by one. Now I'll start with the first one, that is groups. Okay. Usually the group is represented as G. Okay, in the abstract algebra, and most commonly it is referred as something like this, that is within the flower bracket G comma a operator, dot operator. Okay, this operator can be anything. It can be addition operator, it can be say multiplication operator, it can be any other operator, mathematical operation you are performing on the set of elements, okay, on the group. Okay, so let us say we have two elements there, A and B. A dot B, okay, the answer whatever you get should also be in G. Okay, so we call set of elements as group if they actually follow these four axioms, A1 to A4 axioms, or they have to satisfy these conditions. Now what are those conditions are? Just look at this. The first one is the closure property, the second one is associative property, the third one is there should be an identity element, and there should be a inverse element also. If all the four conditions are satisfied on a set of elements, I call those set of elements as a group. Now the first one, closure. Which is closure means within the set. Now that means if I consider two elements, say A and B, okay, which belongs to the group G, then A dot B should also be in group G. That means you are performing a certain operation here, dot, okay, maybe addition, I perform a plus B. Whatever the answer you get, that answer should also be the part of the group or set of elements. In that case, it is, we can say that group is under closure, you can say, or the result is closed within the group or set of elements. The second one is associative, very familiar and very easiest to know the property, isn't it? So it's A dot of B dot C should be equal to A dot of B dot C for all the elements of ABC in group G. That means here performing this dot operation between B and C first. In this case on the RHS side, you are performing a dot operation on the AB. That again, dot operation can be any addition, multiplication or any some other operation. So if anyway you perform it, but if LHS is equal to RHS, okay, then we say the second property is satisfied. The third one is identity element. That means there should be a particular element in group. Let us say that element is E, such that A dot E and E dot A results the same element A. Okay, A is also part of the G, E is also part of the G, and you perform this operation like addition, multiplication or whatever, A dot E and E dot A is equal to A. If this is the case, then I call this E as the identity element. The E is the identity element. Let us say I am performing the addition operation. Okay, so in that case, what is the identity element? The identity element is, let me write that number over here. The identity element is here, it is 0, right? Because A plus 0 or 0 plus A is always equal to A itself. Okay, under the addition operation. Under the multiplication operation, what is the identity element? That is equal to 1, because a into 1 and 1 into a is always again equal to a. So depending on the type of operation, okay, you will be having the identity element, and if that 1 or 0, if it is part of the group G, then we say there is an identity element within the set of elements. Now the next one is inverse element. Now let us again consider one particular element, say A, in particular in the group G. There should be an element something called as A dash. Okay. Such condition that A dot A dash and A dash dot A should be equal to the identity element. Okay. That is A into, maybe if it is multiplication operation, A into A dash equal to A dash into A should be equal to the identity element, or A plus A dash equal to A dash plus A is equal to E under the addition or multiplication operation. If this is the case, if that A dash exists within the set of elements, then we say that there is an inverse element for every element of the group G. So if these four groups, conditions or axioms are satisfied, then we call the set of elements as a group under the operation dot. Maybe addition under the addition operation, or maybe under the multiplication operation. Now let us see a few examples of this group. Okay. Now the first one is, this is set of all positive integers, maybe positive number, negative number, including 0, under the by arithmetic operation, that is addition. Okay. Under the arithmetical addition operation, it actually forms a group, because all the set of integers will have a additive inverse. It will have identity element such as say 0. Okay, positive, negative, 0 I have told here. So that means it actually forms a group. The second one is set of all even integers also forms a group under the arithmetical addition operation. Okay. The next one is set of all 3 cross non-singular matrices. Okay, along with the matrix multiplication operation actually forms a group. So these are the 3 examples for group. Now I'll take up a different example to explain all the 4 properties, how to satisfy 4 properties, or whether, if I consider this particular example of say permutation, whether it satisfies all the 4 properties, and can we call it as a group, that we will understand. Now just look at this. I have a set, let us consider n. This is the set I have, n. Okay, it actually consists of n distinct symbols or numbers. Okay, let us say those numbers are say 1 to n. I have a set of elements, n number of elements. So this n is set of elements from 1 to n. If I say n3, I have a set of elements from 1 to 3. Okay, what is permutation? Permutation is nothing but rearranging those elements in a different order and getting multiple combinations, right? That is called permutation. It's a one-to-one mapping from n to n, let us say. Okay, that is, now I'll get all the permutations. Let us say I have a different kind of permutations representation. Say 1, 2, 3 is one kind of, say if it is n3, in that case 1, 2, 3 is one permutation. 3, 2, 1 is another permutation. Okay, so with such a similar, I can have a number of permutations. Okay, now I'll form a set of elements which represents actually just the permutations or combinations with a different order. I call that set of all permutations as, let us say, Sn. So Sn represents set of all the permutations. I'll take up an example in the next slide. Now, what is the size of that Sn is? That means how many permutations are available or present or is possible, okay, if there are n number of elements in the Nn. That is nothing but it is n factorial. Okay, those many permutations are possible. I'll take up an example. Now, so each element of that Sn is represented by a permutation of features. I told about that already. Okay, so it is very easy to show that this Sn actually forms a group under a particular operation. What is that operation is also I will tell you a bit later. Now just look at this example. So I have a n where n equal to 3, that is n3 I have taken. My set consists of 3 elements, 1, 2, 3. There are 3 elements here, that means 3 factorial permutations are possible. What is 3 factorial? It is 6. So I can have a, just to give me a time, I'm very sorry, yeah. So I have 6 possibilities. That is the size of the S3. What are those possibilities are? So this is a 1, 2, 3 itself is a one permutation. 1, 3, 2 is another one. 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, sorry, 2, 1, 3 and 2, 3, 1, 3, 1, 2 and 3, 2, 1. These are the possible permutations. Okay. Now, I have written a set S3 which represents all the permutations, possible permutations, 6 possible permutations in this example. If there are 4 elements, 4 factorial, that's it. That will be the total number of permutations I can have, and you have to write those many permutations. Now, on this set S3, I am performing a operation called as composition of permutation. This is the operation, not addition, not subtraction, not multiplication. This is a different, completely different kind of operation I am performing, and that is the operator, the dot operator, what we say, is nothing but it is the composition of permutation. So this is the operation I am performing here. What do you mean by that composition of permutation? I'll explain this first. Then let us prove all the 4 properties one by one. That is A1 to A4. Fine. Closure, associative, identity element and inverse element. Now, what do you mean by this composition of permutation? Okay. Now just consider there are 2 elements of the set S3, and those elements are rho and pi. Okay. That means rho and pi can be any one of just one second. Let me okay, fine. I will go with this color itself. Fine. Yeah. So rho may be one of the elements, something like this maybe, and pi is another element, something like this. Maybe 1, 3, 2, 2, 3, 1, or 1, 2, 3, 2, 1, 3, whatever. So rho and pi actually represents 2 permutations of the set S3. Fine. Now, composition of permutation here means, let us say pi dot p, where dot actually represents the operation called composition of permutation. The meaning of this is, we want to repermute or rearrange the elements of the row according to the number given in the pi. Okay, that is, just look at this. This means that we want to repermute the elements of row according to the elements of pi. Okay. Now, what do you mean by this? I'll explain that by using an example. This also proves the first one, the closure property. Okay. What the closure property is? If rho and pi belongs to Sn, of course they belong to Sn, then the composite mapping pi dot p is formed by permuting the elements of rho according to the elements of permutation in the pi. Now just take an example of 3, 2, 1 and 1, 3, 2. So this is your pi. Okay, this is pi, the first element, and this element is rho. Fine. So rho and pi. So what we have to do here, we have to rearrange the elements of this row according to the order given in this pi. That means you have a 3, 2, 1 means the third element of this row should be the first element here. Okay. That's what they're saying. The 3 means it is in the first position. Okay. That is, the third element of row should be in the first position. The second element of row should be in the second position. So that means 3 should come here. Okay. 1 means it should be in the third position. The first element should be in the third position. So the first element should be in the third position. So we rearrange it. What is the answer we got? 2, 3, 1. This 2, 3, 1 is closure under the set. So 2, 3, 1 somewhere here. Is it 2, 3, 1? Where it is? Yeah, it is here. This is 2, 3, 1. That is also part of the set of elements. That means you can say that the first property is proved. Okay. That is, N3 is closed with respect to the operation of composition of 2 permutations. Okay. This is the first case. Now I'll go to the second one. Okay. A2. What is that? A2 says associative property. That means rho 1 dot rho 2 dot rho 3 is equal to rho 1 dot rho 2 dot rho 3. That means here rho 1, rho 2, rho 3 is nothing but they are the individual elements of they are permutations of S3. Okay, I can consider any 3 permutations. Let us say my 3 permutations are 3, 2, 1, 1, 3, 2 and 2, 1, 3. Okay, so what you are doing here, you are performing according to the LHS. What we are doing is we are performing rho 2 dot rho 3. That is permutation, composition of permutation of rho 2 and rho 3 first. We are doing this first. Okay, whatever the answer you get, you are performing that with the first one, rho 1. Okay, in this case, you are performing rho 1, rho 2 initially. Okay, permutation of combination. Okay, then that is performed. The answer is performed with rho 3. That's the third one. The answer should be same. You can check that the answer will be same. So you can say the second property is true. You can check by using the same method, whatever I described over here. Okay, the same method you have to use. But the order of doing that is different, associative property. Okay. The third one is identity mapping. Okay. That means in the set given here S3, there should be one element such that it gives the same element, whatever that row is. Let us say row is one of the element I have considered. Okay, maybe 1, 2, 3, or maybe 1, 3, 2, maybe 2, 1, 3, or whatever. Okay, there should be one permutation such that when I perform a composition of permutation, it should give me the same row. Fine. Let us say I have a row. I have taken a row over here. Row is, let us consider 1, 3, 2. Okay, I'll go with 1, 3, 2 as row. My row is 1, 3, 2. Fine. Yeah. Row is 1, 3, 2. I have an element something called as 1, 2, 3. Okay, the original set I can say, or original permutation, which act like an identity element. Why? Because when I perform a permutation of composition operation with a row, okay, with any order, row composition of permutation with 1, 2, 3, or 1, 2, 3 composition of permutation with a row, whatever, okay, it will give me the same answer. Let us say I have this number now, 1, 3, 2 I have. Okay, this is 1, 3, 2 I have, and I consider 1, 2, 3. Okay, I rearrange the numbers. What I'll get? The meaning of this is first element should be the first element of this should be the first element itself, right? Third element should be the the second element. The third element is 3. That should be the second element. Now second element should be the third element. So it is the third element is here 3 here, and the second element should be the third element, that is 2. So what I'm getting 1, 3, 2 only. I'm getting a row back, right? Whatever the row I considered, I'm getting the same number over here, right? So that means I can say that this combination, that is 1, 2, 3, is identity element in case of set of permutations. Now A4, what is that A4? I consider again a particular example, say row, maybe whatever it is, 2, 1, 3, 2, 3, 1, whatever. Okay, it has got a multiplicative inverse. And then when you perform a composition of permutation with that element, say inverse, I'll get the identity element. Now just consider here 2, 3, 1. Okay, for 2, 3, 1, what I'm saying is, I'm saying 3, 1, 2 is the inverse. Why? Because when I perform a composition of permutation operation over here, that means you have to rearrange this according to the element of this. That means the second element should come first. So the second element is this. I have written somewhere here, right? Third element should be the second element, that is 2, written here, right? First element should be the third element, that is 3. So I have written somewhere here, right? So I get a 1, 2, 3. What is 1, 2, 3? 1, 2, 3 is nothing but it is the identity element. Is it right? Correct. So that means 3, 1, 2 is the inverse of 2, 1, 3. So what I want to say here is the identity element is this 1, 2, 3, and just look at this. When I do this operation, I'm getting back the identity element. So all the 4 properties are satisfied. That means I can say that this set is nothing but a group. Fine. Now I'll extend this concept. Fine. Again, before going to my next axiom. So as I told in the very beginning that the set of elements can be finite or infinite. That means if there are countable number of elements, we call this as a finite set or a finite group. Or if there are say infinite number of elements in the set of elements, you can say a group. It is called as infinite group. Now, to extend further, now if I satisfy one more axiom, okay, that is commutative property also, then I call the group as abelian group. The group is called abelian group when you satisfy the another property called as commutative property. What is commutative property is, let us say A and B are the elements in the G, the group. If A dot B is equal to B dot A, that is, if A dot B and that means addition, right? So let us perform addition operation. If A plus B is equal to B plus A, in that case, you can say that it is satisfying the commutative property, and the group is called as abelian group. Let us see a few examples. Just look at this. A set of integers, okay, is a group, but it is also a abelian group. The set of non-zero real numbers under the multiplication operation is the abelian group. Satisfies all the axioms from A1 to A5. Okay, set of Sn from the previous example, that is permutation of combination, okay, composition, right? So that is also a abelian group, but under the condition that n should be more than 2, not less than 2. When we are performing these operations like addition and all those things, you have an inverse element, right? If it is group, it will be having an inverse element. The advantage of this is we can perform a subtraction operation, okay, by considering the inverse of the other element. That means I want to perform, say, a minus b in this case. I want to subtract, but I can do that by using the addition itself. A plus of minus b, where minus b is nothing but it is the inverse of the element b. By considering the inverse of the element, second element, I can add those inverse and the first element. I'll get a subtraction of the two elements. That is the advantage. So subtraction can be done by using the addition itself, but we need to take the inverse of the second number. Okay. Now one more. The name says cyclic group. A group is called cyclic group under a particular condition. Before going into that, how exactly you perform a exponentiation within the group, that we will understand. Okay, with a particular group operator. So let us say I have a cube. Okay, how to perform this exponentiation? It is a dot a dot a. Okay, that is 3 times, correct? A cube is a dot a only, correct? Or let us say a to the power 0 is always equal to an identity element, right? Isn't it? A power 0 is 1. Under the multiplication operation, it is the identity element, correct? Under the group also it is the identity element only. And we can perform this a to the power minus n as inverse of a to the power plus n. If you have a minus n there, inverse of a to the plus n. Okay. Now I'll come to this topic of cyclic group. A group G is actually called as a cyclic group if every element of that group G is power of some element, say a to the power k. A is part of the group, let us consider. Okay, it has to be a to the power k. That means every element of the group, if it is possible to represent as some power of the particular element, say a to the power k, okay, then we call this as cyclic group, where this a is actually called as the generator of G. That means I can generate all the remaining elements by using a, considering some power of that k, okay, of that particular element. And cyclic group is always a Abelian group. It may be a finite or an infinite group. I'll go back to the previous slide. Yeah, just an example. Okay, additive group of integers. That means a group of integers under the addition operation is an infinite cyclic group, which will be generated by the element equal to 1. That means here, the meaning of this is, let us say I have a set of elements, say 1, 2, 3, and so on, infinite elements. Okay, infinite elements. I can represent this 2 by using 1, right? How to represent 1 plus 1 under the addition operation? I can represent 3. I can generate 3. How to generate 3? By using a. Let us say a is equal to 1 in this case. 1 plus 1 plus 1. So by using this 1 itself, I can generate all the other elements. That means this is the generator. Okay, this is the generator. Or nth power of 1 I can also take, and we can represent all the other numbers. So this is called cyclic group. Now, so this is about group, the cyclic group and all. So I said A1 to A5, it has to satisfy to call this as a Abelian group. Now I'll extend this topic to the next term, that is rings. Now when exactly we call the set of elements as rings? Just look at this. We represent first of all ring by this particular notation, that is R plus and multiplication. This is okay. That means we are performing the two major operations on the set of elements like addition and multiplication only. So we are restricting to addition and multiplication. Okay, and it has to satisfy a few more axioms apart from whatever I described so far, and they are A1 to A5. That means the ring should be a Abelian group. We have to satisfy all the previous axioms from A1 to A5. Apart from this, and we have to satisfy these conditions under the operation of addition, remember. Okay. Apart from this, we need to satisfy 3 more operations under multiplication. Okay, that is closure under multiplication, associativity under multiplication, distributive law under the multiplication. So closure under multiplication means again, take two elements A and B. So A dot B or A multiplied by B should also be part of the ring. The answer. Associativity means A into B into C is equal to AB into C. In the previous, A1 to A5, say let us say A2. Where is the associative property? A plus of B plus C should be equal to A plus B of plus C. Okay, those conditions has to be satisfied under the addition operation. Under the multiplication also, it has to satisfy a associative property. What about distributive law? You know it. A into B plus C is equal to AB plus AC. A plus B into C is AC plus BC. Just take 3 elements of the set of elements A, B, C, and if this condition is satisfied, then we say that it is a ring. so under the multiplication operation. Okay, so A1 to A5, M1 to M3, if all the axioms are satisfied under addition operation as well as multiplication operation, then we call this as a ring. Okay, and in the ring, okay, we can perform I told about subtraction already over there. We can perform a multiplication without leaving the set. Fine. I'll give you a few examples of the ring. So this is the first one. The set of all even integers, positive, negative, or 0 and 0. Under the operation of addition and multiplication is a ring. Set of all even integers. Set of all integers. Remember, set of all integers, okay, forms a ring under the addition and multiplication operation. The third one is the set of all real numbers under the operation of arithmetic addition and multiplication also forms a ring. Okay. Now, for a given value of n, let us say I have a n cross n square matrix. Okay, so n cross n, say 3 cross 3, maybe 2 cross 2. Set of all 3 cross 3 or 2 cross 2 matrices over the real numbers. Remember, it's over the real numbers under the operation of matrix addition and matrix multiplication constitutes a ring. Fine. This is about a ring. Now, further extending to this topic. Now, under the ring also, if it satisfies a commutative property, okay, commutative property under the multiplication, that is A into B is equal to B into A. If this is the condition, LHS is equal to RHS, we call the ring as commutative ring. Okay, a few examples. Now these are the examples. Set of all even integers. Set of all integers again under addition and multiplication. It actually is a commutative ring. The set of all real numbers under the operation of arithmetic addition and multiplication also forms a commutative ring. Now, one more term more commonly used is integral domain. That means a ring in the integral domain. We call the ring set of elements, which is a ring basically, in the integral domain if it satisfies few more properties. And what are those properties? The properties are multiplicative identity, and there should not be any zero divisors. Okay, there should be a multiplicative identity in this case now. Fine. Additive identity element exists under the addition operation A4 I believe. Now this is multiplicative identity. That is what is the meaning of that? That is A into 1 equal to 1 into A is always equal to A, where 1 is the multiplicative identity element. Fine. Now, no zero divisors. We will understand what do you mean by zero divisors. So I have taken a n cross n matrix. Let us say 2 cross 2 matrix, which actually forms a field. Let us say, okay. Okay. So what I'm saying here is a ring of n cross n matrices over the field has no zero divisors if it is n more than 2. Now just take an example of 2 cross 2 here. Okay, matrix. Non-zero matrix. So I have a 1 0 0 0 0 0 0 1. I'm multiplying this with this. What I'm getting the answer as 0. Okay. 1 1 2 2 or 1 1 minus 1 minus 1 I have taken another matrix. The answer is again 0. When I multiply this and this, I get an answer as 0. Fine. What do you mean by this? I call in this example. Let us say if there are two terms related to this zero divisor. One is called left zero divisor. The other one is right zero divisor. What do you mean by that? Okay, I have a particular element, say A. Okay, I multiply that by that element. Let us say this is A. I multiply that by some other non-zero element, say X. It's a matrix. Let us say this is X. A into X. So when I multiply A with X, if the answer is equal to 0, I call this A or this matrix as zero divisor. It's a left zero divisor. Similarly, I take one example, say A over here, and this is Y. Let us consider non-zero elements. Both are non-zero matrices. I multiply this Y with A. I get the answer as 0. So Y into A is equal to 0. So in that case, I call this A, which is part of my ring. Okay, is a zero divisor. If this is part of my ring, it is a zero divisor over here. When multiplied with the other 2 cross 2 matrix, I got the answer as 0. I call this as a right zero divisor. It's a zero divisor. Remember, if this is part of the ring, then I cannot call this as a ring in the integral domain because there should not be a zero divisor in the ring. Fine. So in that case, we say it is a ring in the integral domain. So that means if A and B are in R, if A into B is 0, then either A is 0 or B is 0. Okay. Now, a few examples for ring in the integral domain. Starting with again the previous example only. The set of all integers under the addition and multiplication is a ring in the integral domain. The set of all real numbers is also ring in the integral domain. Now the third one, that is fields. This is an extension of the last two topics itself, because to be called as field, the set of elements to be called as a field, it should satisfy a few more axioms. Okay, what are those axioms? I'll tell you. But before that, how do you represent it? We represent the field by using this notation again, f plus and multiplication. We are performing these two operations on a set of elements. Okay, and we have to satisfy the axioms. What are those axioms? Are a1 to a5, m1 to m6. Okay, that is f should be in the integral domain first of all. F should be in the integral domain first of all. Okay, all the previous axioms has to be satisfied, and one additional property it has to satisfy is there should be a multiplicative inverse. If there exists a multiplicative inverse, then we call this as a field. Okay, that is a into a inverse, and a inverse into a should be always equal to the identity element under the multiplication operation. Okay, so now in this case I can perform all the four operations. That means I can perform all the four operations like addition, subtraction, multiplication and division if the set of element is a field. Okay, how to do that? I know how to do subtraction. I have explained already. Now I can perform a division. I can perform subtraction by doing addition if I know the additive inverse, right? I can perform a division by multiplication process if I know the inverse, if I have an inverse. So under the field there will be always an inverse, right? So how to perform that? A by B. Let us say I have a by B, two elements I consider A by B. Okay, so A by B is equivalent to what? A into B inverse. I'm doing a multiplication considering the inverse of the second element. So by either doing addition or multiplication I can perform all the four operations. This is how I can do. Okay, this is what normally done in the cryptographic algorithms. A few examples. Set of all real numbers is a field. Set of all rational numbers is a field. Set of all complex numbers is also a field, but set of all even integers is not a field. All even integers like plus 2, minus 2, 0, plus or minus 4 and all numbers will not have a multiplicative inverse. Okay, so the set of all integers under the operation of addition multiplication is not a field. So to sum up, in this video I have explained the three major topics, that is groups, rings and fields, along with the axioms which we need to satisfy. Fine, I hope you have understood the topic. Okay, thank you for watching this video.